Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Ampt Live, where we're doing some streaming here. So I'm Jeremy Daly, and I am one of the founders here at Ampt. And if you're not familiar with Ampt, it's essentially a developer tool that makes it super easy for you to build applications on AWS using all of your favorite serverless services and so forth. Anyways, we are live on Twitch, Twitter, X, I guess, LinkedIn, YouTube. If you're out there and you have any questions or want to, I don't know, criticize my programming skills, whatever you want to do, I'm happy to take those comments and run with those. So a couple things I wanted to talk about today, mostly around the idea of storage and event-driven storage. So one of the things that's very, very cool about AWS is S3. There are a lot of blob storage services out there, Azure Blob Storage and some of these other ones. But what's really cool about S3 is it's very event driven, right? So if you upload a file or you put a file into a directory, you delete a file, you do something like that, then you can actually react to those using Lambda functions or using some sort of a trigger that allows you to do some pretty cool things. So I want to talk about that a little bit, but one of the things I want to mention first before we kind of get into some of those things is a new feature that was released by AWS like 2 days ago, maybe, even if it was 2 days ago. And that is the new S3 conditional writes. Just bring this up quickly if I can find it right here. So 2 days ago, August 20th. So what conditional writes are, if you've ever used S3 in the past, you use a put object command in order to write a file or a blob, some sort of an object into the S3 object store. And if that file already exists, it just overwrites that file. And so that's probably the behavior that you want. Most times you want to be updating a file. That makes a lot of sense. But the idea behind the conditional writes is to say sometimes you might not want that. And that often happens, sort of as they explain here, is that if you've got multiple customers or multiple clients that are writing, to a specific bucket, you want to make sure that only one of them can create that object. So it's possible, again, if you're doing some machine learning things or you're doing some of these other things, that you would want to be able to just limit it so that you make sure that this file is in fact not there, because I don't want to overwrite this file. It could be a data file that gets generated somehow. It could be something that's trying to reprocess or something. There's a whole bunch of reasons why that might make sense. So one of the things that we did with Ampt very quickly is this was a feature that I think is really powerful, really useful, and so we wanted to make sure that we got that into Ampt as soon as possible. So we've gone ahead and we've added that to the storage, our storage interface, and essentially we now have these conditional writes for the storage interface, where when you do a .write command on a storage bucket, that you can pass in this exists false, and that will go ahead and throw an error if the file already exists. So again, just maybe hopefully a helpful feature that will kind of get you there and give you some more capabilities. Okay, so let's get into what we're trying to do here today. We'll talk a little bit about the storage interface, how that works, and then we'll actually do some code, and we'll kind of go through that. All right, so if we go back to sort of the beginning here of the storage interface, to sort of put this in context, there are a lot of services at AWS, a lot. And in order to interact with those services, especially if you're doing it from a Lambda function or from any service, you need to be able to have the right permissions to connect to it. You need to set up any event source mappings and all these other things that you need to do in order to make sure that they interact with or they can interact with those services. It gets to be quite a bit, and you also kind of have to make a lot of these decisions up front we try to be a little bit more flexible. So what we do at Ampt is we actually create a environment for you. We call it an Ampt environment. And essentially what that does is it has a bunch of sort of pre-configured services ready to go for you, already deployed. And then we give you an SDK that exposes these interfaces that make it really easy, or we hope really easy, for you to interact with these different services. So one of these is storage. And essentially storage is an abstraction or an interface on top of S3 that gives you sort of the main components of S3 that you need in order to build an application. So let's start with the sort of the basics here. So first of all, the cool thing about S3 is, of course, it can be accessed by CloudFront as one of the origins, which gives you the ability to store files like for your CDN, or if you're serving up static files from a website or something like that, or you're just distributing files. Maybe you've got PDF, white papers or something like that you want to distribute. So it's very, very powerful for that. So what we do is we give you the storage interface right off of the Ampt SDK. And then we allow you to define buckets. Now, what we do right now is just to make it super simple, right? So you don't have to worry about deleting a bucket or removing a bunch of things, or having to manage too many things. We create one bucket for your application. For every application that you create, we create a dedicated bucket for that, and then expose that via the storage interface. What we make it easier to do, and hopefully we make this, this is pretty straightforward, is we do give you the ability to prefix these buckets. Or prefix the objects that you're going to put into the buckets by creating sort of what we define. We call it a bucket just to sort of keep with the nomenclature there. But essentially, when you do something like this, when you define a new bucket here and you say storage and you call it students, what you're basically doing is creating a prefix for that. So that's really helpful, because then that way anything you create is automatically put into a prefix. Obviously, you have a default bucket that would be, I say obviously, maybe it's not obvious, but you can actually just say storage, like a root bucket, for example. So it's possible that you can access from your root bucket. You can access other buckets and so forth. But the idea is just to kind of give you the mental model to keep things separated. So that's a basic idea. So this is what you do. You import storage from the Ampt SDK. You define a bucket or define your root bucket, either way. You also don't necessarily need to define these in the sense that you have to create, you have to initialize them somehow. If you use storage students, for example, the way this is right there, you can go ahead and you can do calls off of that. You can attach methods or chain methods off of that if you want to. Okay, so storing files, hopefully this is pretty straightforward as well. What you do is you get, you go ahead and define your bucket here, and then you just use this .write. You specify the path. This path is relative to whatever whatever the name of the bucket is. And then you just send in the binary data for that particular file. If it's text data, for example, like if it's a text file, it can be text data. That's perfectly fine as well, because it wouldn't be binary. But essentially what you do is you specify the binary data or the data that you're sending in, and then you have a couple of options. You can specify metadata around it. You can specify a specific type. If you don't specify a type, we use a we use this, MIME types in order to calculate what we think the type is based off of the extension. So if you upload a JPEG or a BMP, do people still use BMPs? WebP or something like that, it'll go ahead and give it the right, it'll guess at the extension or guess based on the extension and assign the right type for you. So just kind of nice little convenience there. So that's the write piece of it. The conditional write, same idea. Whatever your path is to that file, if you put this exists false as part of the options there, it'll go ahead and it will fail if that is that written. It does actually fail. So it would give you a. Hold on a second. Let me just turn this down. Other way. Okay. It would fail. It will throw an error, so you do need to catch that error, and then it will return just that the object already exists for you. So you can go ahead and if that's the error that you get back, then you can go ahead and do something specific with that, as opposed to, just didn't upload or something like that. So reading files, pretty straightforward as well. If you read them by default, it will go in as a readable stream, but you can also return it as a buffer. So there's a couple different ways to do this. You can either just use .read, which will read in as a readable stream for you. So that's helpful if you want to chunk like a really large text file or something like that. And then you can also use buffer true, which will just return a single buffer of that file, or you can use read buffer, which is just a sort of convenience method that allows you to do that. All right, those are the basic things there. There's some other things. You can move files around, pretty straightforward. You can check if a file exists, which is super helpful, or was super helpful before if you were trying to make sure you didn't overwrite a file, which we can now do with conditional writes. You can get information about the file. So if you just want to pull the stat on the file, you'll get a whole bunch of stuff like last modified, the size, the metadata, the type, and some of that other information. You also have the ability to just list files. So this is super helpful if you just want to get a list of all the files in a particular, quote unquote directory. It's not really what they are in S3, but same idea. So that will also give you a couple cool options here, like recursive, which will allow you to do we'll look deeper into the folders for you as well if you want to be able to do that. And then a page size, and then the ability for you to go ahead and loop over those as well. And again, this will automatically paginate for you, which is kind of nice. You can remove files with just a .remove, pretty straightforward. And then you can actually create upload and download URLs. So if you've ever used S3 in the past, there is a 6 megabyte, if you're uploading a file through a Lambda function, then there's a 6 megabyte limit for that. Again, depends on how you build your application, but if you do use a Lambda function to do that, you're only going to be able to upload 6 megabytes. So if you have a really large file that you need to upload, it's not always, it won't work through a Lambda function. So unless you somehow figure out how to chunk it or something like that, but on the client side. So what you can do is you can actually generate a URL that is essentially already authorized, that allows you to upload a specific file to a specific bucket, with a certain timeout on it that will eventually expire. And then that way you can upload whatever size file you want to. So we allow you to go ahead and generate those and return that back so that somebody has the ability to actually do the uploads that way if they want to. So that's one way. And then the other thing is if you are downloading really large files. So we do two things. I'll talk about public in just a second. So we create a public folder for you where we automatically, anything in that folder is automatically public, meaning you can access that. But if you want to protect files and programmatically control the access to those files, you can go ahead and create a download URL. And the download URL essentially would just give you a direct link to the file with a assigned request, and then allow the user to download that. So you can generate that on the fly, return that to the user, even return that to the user just as a redirect, for example. So really it's kind of transparent to them, but gives you a lot of capabilities there. So if you did want to do something like, fill out this form and then download our white paper, you could do something like that where the file that or the link that they got to download that file, that would expire, seconds after they downloaded the file, and they wouldn't be able to share it or post it somewhere else. Okay, and then the serving the public objects. So again, all objects are private, right? There are no open S3 buckets that you have to worry about unless you put something into the public folder. So the public folder is automatically mapped to your CDN. So anything in that public folder is going to be accessible and downloadable without any sort of authorization. It'll just be available for you. So this is actually really, really great and super useful if you are doing things like profile images or anything like that where you have to upload a file. It's associated with that instance of the app, right? So there's a difference between static files that are core to the actual application that you're deploying, right? So you may be deploying files, that are, images or CSS files or JS files or things like that. Those are the files that are static that need to be present in every single version of your application, every environment that it's deployed into, every development sandbox, every staging or preview environment, as well as production. Whereas these files are things like, okay, somebody created a new user account and they uploaded a profile picture, or maybe you've got something that you're uploading documents to or something like that. So they're files that are needed in the app, but they're specific to a particular instance of the application or an environment of the application. So that's where these work out really, really well. And essentially what we do is we just make that anything you put in there is public. Couple different things. If you serve these publicly, they are by default not cached. Okay, so we don't add any sort of caching header to the file. If you redeploy your application, the CDN cache is cleared. So if you were to change files or so forth, I mean, I guess it wouldn't really matter. But essentially, the idea is to say if you upload a file, we don't want to cache it by default for you. But you can set a max age option. So essentially, you would say, writing to mylogo. Which is probably not the best example, but you write the binary data and then you say max age is 3,600 seconds. So that would say that when somebody loads this file, it'll cache that for 36, for 3,600 seconds or an hour or whatever that would be, right? So that's super useful because again, you don't have to keep downloading the same file from the origin, right? So your origin is going to be an S3 bucket in US East 1 or wherever it is that your S3 buckets are. Whereas, once it gets cached by a POP, one of the CloudFront CDN or CloudFront just POPs or whatever they're called, your points of presence, one of those regions, then it would load from there, so it wouldn't have to, it's just going to load faster for you. And of course, e-tags and all that stuff, that's already automatic, so you don't have to worry about the browser trying to fetch new stuff if the e-tag is the same. So that's automatically done for you. But if you are using something that is like a name, like it's a profile photo, like my profile photo or something like that, then and you cache it, then if somebody updates their profile photo, it will take however long you've cached it for that to reset and disappear, or use the new version of it. So in a situation like that, if it was like profile pictures, it's probably a good idea to rename the profile photo with something different. Delete the old profile photo, for example, and if the old profile photo lives in the cache for a couple of hours or a day or whatever it is, there wouldn't be a reference to it. And if it deletes and goes away, again, eventually it'll clear itself from the cache if it was in fact cached. So anyways, neither here nor there. All right. So from an event-driven standpoint, though, one of the really, really cool things that we've added to the storage interface is this idea of listeners. So if you're familiar with S3, you can create S3 triggers. S3 triggers can be triggered based off of when you write or remove something. I think there's some other ones in there as well. I think copy and some of those other things are also available for triggers. Right now, we support the write and the remove. And so essentially what that does is it says, when I write a file to AWS S3, go ahead and fire off this particular handler for me. If I delete a file, go ahead and fire off this particular handler for me. And so what we do is you just go ahead and create these .on that will allow you to go ahead and listen to specific specific events or specific files that are uploaded. What's very, very cool about this is that we do allow you to do essentially glob patterns that gives you the ability to sort of filter on specific things. So if you were, wanted to build something that only had to, only affected when people uploaded a profile photo or something like that, you could just listen on a specific route that was the profile photo updates. You could listen for anytime a profile photo was deleted, or maybe it's a PDF directory of PDFs, and anytime a PDF is deleted that has, some pattern or something like that, you can do some cool things with that, and you can react to it. And of course, the nice thing about this is that you have sort of full control over what gets triggered, when it gets triggered, and then you have programmatic access to all that stuff. And then just the last thing is that timeout. So if you are doing big operations in your in your storage handlers, in these reactive sort of things, they are going to time out within 5 seconds by default. That's just, again, in case something goes awry, we just want to have low default so that that it will time out if there's something going wrong. But if you're doing image manipulation, or maybe you're doing some sort of AI thing on it and you're analyzing the image or doing something, whatever you're doing, it could take longer than that. So you do have the option to specify the timeout when you actually create the on or the listener. Or the other option is that when it's actually running, if you want to change the timeout of that handler, you can do that actually just by setting the set timeout or calling set timeout on the context object that's passed in, or the context, object, yeah, sure, that's passed into the handler for you. So what's cool about this is that if you maybe set the timeout initially for 10 seconds, or maybe 5 seconds is fine. You open up the file, maybe there's something you detect about the file, and you say, oh, this is going to require more processing, or you decide programmatically that you need to run this for longer than whatever the default timeout was, or whatever the timeout was that you set as part of the handler, then you can dynamically change the timeout, which is pretty cool. And I think, yeah, it says here the maximum timeout is 600 seconds. So you get quite a bit of time in order to 600 seconds or 60 seconds. It might be 60 seconds. I don't know why it could be 600 seconds, but I think it's 60 seconds that allows you to go ahead and do some stuff in there. And again, the other very cool thing about the way that this works is if these handlers are not enough time for you to do something, or you want to really kick off a big job from it, you can go ahead and just trigger a task. All right, and so you can do a bunch of this stuff within a task as well. So, okay, let's get into some code. We've been talking for a while. I may have bored you with the storage interface here, but we'll jump into some code and play around with some stuff. So, when I first jumped on, you probably saw that I had this image optimizer open. So this image optimizer is actually one of the, this is an app we built, I'm trying to remember how long ago. A couple months ago, I think we built this app. And the idea behind this app was essentially what we wanted to do was whenever a file was uploaded. So, and we were using Sharp and we were doing some image optimization stuff. So I don't want to rebuild all this and go through that whole process again. There's a whole video on how to get this all set up and things like that. But essentially what we've done here is we've said, we created the Hono app. Again, Hono, big fan of it. We bring in the Sharp library here, and then we import the storage interface from Ampt SDK. We created two buckets. We created one that was called our uploads bucket and one that was called our optimize bucket. We created a new app. We give you just a very simple upload form here, just HTML that's going to post to the /upload directory, or the /upload endpoint. We also give you the ability to load a file. So this was, if you pass in the file name, we would try to read it from the, actually this is the get file. So this manipulates it in real time. So it grabs the file and does some manipulation, and then it goes ahead and writes it to the public directory here, or the public bucket, and then redirects you to that public bucket so that you can see that finalized file. I don't remember doing that, but apparently we did. And then we also have this upload here where we can upload the file. This will go ahead and upload it, or write it to the uploads bucket for us, tell us that it was uploaded. And again, this is just using Hono. It reads the file body, and then it takes the array buffer from the file and writes that into the directory for us. And then this apps.fire, this is just the Hono thing that allows it to have the event listener that is triggered so that it will actually respond when we have any of these API calls. And then finally, there's this uploads.on that we wrote that essentially says when a file is written to the uploads directory, let's go ahead and log that out. But then we're going to read the file. file. So again, we'll get some information from this file. We're going to run this, and so we'll see how this works. But this will give us some information about the file. File.path is where the file actually is. So we'll read that in. And then what we do is we load that buffer into Sharp. And then we did some things here. We basically did a 500 by 500, created a WebP, output it as a buffer, and then we can go ahead and actually write it to this optimized directory. We remove the extension, the file extension here that it talked about. This is just a little function we wrote that just pops off the thing and then joins it back, and then it writes it, tells us that the image has been processed. Okay, so what I want to do here is let's just go ahead and I'm going to run Ampt, by the way. So we're going to start, I'm in the image optimizer directory. These are all the files here, by the way, right? So there's the index file, there's this package.json that essentially just has, I mean, again, this is if we want to run it in Gitpod, couple of dependencies, just Hono, Sharp, and that, and then just this Ampt that tells us this is the name of the app, this is the org we're running it in, and so I get this nice little, I get this nice little URL here. I click open on this URL, and this gives us this particular endpoint that we have there. All right, so what we need to do is we do need to find a file that we want to use. So let's go and let's find a file. Let's just do dog on a beach. I don't know why that seems to be the constant thing that I'm always thinking of, but we'll just grab a random dog on the beach here. How about, it's got to be a, golden retriever on a beach. That seems, yeah, how about this guy? Okay, I like it. So I'm going to go ahead and save this. I don't want to save the link. That's not what I want to do. I want to save the image as, and I'm just going to go ahead and, I don't know, I got a whole bunch of stuff over here. Save it to my desktop. Sure, why don't I create a new folder called images, and then golden retriever enjoys first ever beach trip. Okay, we'll save this. So we have that. It's a .jpg. So we'll come over here and we'll choose that file, images, and I'm going to grab this one, click open, and then upload file. Says it was uploaded, and then if we come over here, we should see a couple of real-time results or real-time logs, which are super helpful. So the first part is we got a result that says that this file was, which again, if we go back, let me just go to our index file here. And when we upload a file, it's going to say the file name, file size, and file type. Which it gets from Hono. So here we see the file name is this, here's the file size, and here's the file type. And then it is going to do a result here, which is going to give us the result of it writing to the bucket. So it tells us that this was the file that it wrote. This is the name of the bucket. Here is the path, and here's the metadata. So that's now been updated. And then we see that we get a storage change. So the first storage change. So the first thing we see is that the file was uploaded. And here's the information that we get about it. And this file right here, we get that it was written, the golden retriever enjoys first ever beach trip.jpg. And then we get the size of it. And then it's going to go ahead and process it. So it reads it and it runs all these little things on it, and it gives us these processing things, and it spits out this WebP image here. Okay, so if we go back to our storage, if we go back over here and we go to storage on this particular, let me try that again. We get two buckets, optimize and upload. So here's the upload with the JPG here. And then we have this optimize, which is this WebP. So let's go ahead and open this selection. And now we have this, right? So the original image was sort of there. Interesting how they center it there. I mean, again, I'm sure we could do something with AI to figure that out. But essentially, we now have this optimized image that is here. Okay, so the other thing that there was, I believe, hold on, let me just go back to our code here. We had this other thing where we said if we load the name of the file, that we will do some work on it, resize it, rotate it to buffer, spit it out, and put it in the public directory. So this should still work. So the name of the file, if we come over here, is, because it's looking in the uploads directory, I believe. So copy selection, clear selection, rename file. I'll rename it, and that way I can copy it. Copy it like this. And then our upload directory that we used over here, this was, I think it was file, right? Oh, hold on. Can never, yeah, /image. Okay. So /image / here. And then this will go ahead and automatically redirect us to public golden retriever enjoys first bucket trip and so forth. Okay, so that's just the basics of how some of this stuff works. I'm a little bit numb to how easy it is, maybe, to do this stuff now, considering it's a little bit more tricky to set it up when you're using S3 and some of these other things. And by the way, we didn't have to create an AWS account. We didn't have to, use serverless framework or any of these other services in order to do this. We were able to essentially just, run Ampt and have a standard Node app. This one's using TypeScript, but anyway, so pretty cool, I think. It gives us some good capabilities to do some stuff. So, all right, so a couple of things before we move on, and maybe we'll play around with some more of these, more of the trigger stuff. I do want to show you just the upload protection thing here, so or the conditional rights. So if we go back to the upload here, so when we go ahead and upload it, this is going to use this file .name, and which is going to be the name that we pass in. And if we somehow wanted to. A couple things. One, we could generate a random name. So we don't need to use file.name, for example. Like, we can obviously programmatically have it be whatever name we want it to be. But let's just say, for the sake of argument, that we want to make sure that this is always uploading the same thing. We don't want to overwrite the name of the file. Perfectly fine. If we go in here and we just do exists and we say exists false. And again, the semantics of this, the idea is to basically say, we have another module called data that allows you to do a bunch of data, work with DynamoDB, and we have an exists option in there as well. And so the idea is to say exists false means only write this if you're doing a set, only write this if it doesn't exist, or exists true, meaning only write this when it does exist. So there's no way for us to say only write this if this does exist, at least not right now in S3. So the only one that works is exists false. If you say exists true, it will let you. It's not going to throw any errors on it, but essentially this is just going to negate the fact that you're trying to make sure that it exists. So we want to say exists false here. All right, so we've done that. Now what we're going to do is I'm going to clear this out here, because this should, fingers crossed, throw an error. I'm going to also close that so we can get a little more space here so we can see these two things in parallel. All right, so we'll go back here, and I'm going to go back to the upload here. Okay, so let's refresh this and choose the file again. So I'm going to grab the same exact one. So if I go to upload this file now, I should get an error over here. It's going to give me this ugly internal server error. And the reason is it's going to say object already exists. So what I want to do is I want to catch this. So let's go ahead and just write try here. And we will catch this like, catch like this. All right, so that's the first step. We're now catching this error, but that's not going to do us any good if we catch it and it doesn't give us any information. So we're going to say if e.message equals, and it is object already exists, like this. Then we can, I don't know why it's giving me an error. E is of type unknown. Okay, yeah. Oh. Error. Does that work? I guess not. All right. Well, anyways, I love using these TS ignores because I am not a TS expert. I'm sure I can figure that easily. All right, so if object already exists, then we want to return, we can just actually return the message, but we'll say a file with that name already exists. That'll be our response. And again, we could return this as, we can give it, this is returning obviously just HTML, but we're going to just return it back as that. And then if not, we just want to return HTML, an error occurred. And we can maybe say an error occurred, just to be clearer, while uploading the file. Okay, so now we have that, and let's go back here. And now if we try to upload this file again, a file with that name already exists. So that just is a nice little way for us to handle that, and it doesn't kick off anything that would break something. And then of course, if we come back here, I think, let's see if can we rename this from here? Probably not, right? No, maybe we can rename. Enjoys trip1.jpg. How about that? We'll open that, upload that file, and that was uploaded correctly. And then it's going to do some of that processing for us. Boom, boom, boom. And now we have the WebP version of that as well. So just a couple of things there that that show us or give us the ability to delete some of that stuff. Okay, so we've got that uploaded directory. Let's see, what else could we do here to kind of talk about some of these event-driven capabilities. So let's say we upload a file, we're going to capture it. We're now protecting to make sure that we don't upload the same file over and over again. We do have this write pattern here that says if we write it, do something. We could also say maybe, so here's something interesting, I think. Let's say if we go to, let's find a random PDF file. How about that? That file. I don't even know how we would find a random PDF. Sample PDF file. How about that? Sample documents. Prints.xm. PDF. How big is this file? Let's see here. That's way too big. It's a whole dictionary. I don't want that. I just want a simple textbook newsletter. All right, how about this? All right, here's a 3-page PDF. Okay, let's save this. Save page as dry lab. I'm gonna call it test PDF like this. Okay, so we now have a test PDF file here, and if we were to come over to this, go over here, choose file as a test PDF, and hit open, and then upload this file. So this will say that it was uploaded, but we're going to get a bunch of errors here. And it's going to say the input buffer contains an unsupported image format. Now, again, what this is going to try to do is that this storage change handler should keep on refiring because it's basically going to say, oh, there was an error. I need to keep on checking it. So let me clear this out for a second, and it should automatically retry. But while we're waiting for that to do that, one of the things that we want to make sure is that if somebody uploads a file that doesn't work because the file is incompatible, then we want to go ahead and make sure that we don't try to process it. So there's a couple different things we can do. It looks like it's not retrying. I'm trying to remember what the retry policy is on storage. Double check this. Okay, so it is retrying. So it's retried again. So input buffer contains unsupported image format, right? So what we can do is we'll take this, and we can go ahead and when we have the write, we can read the buffer, and let's do this. I'm going to wrap this in a try catch. This way we just won't get this thing firing constantly. And then we will catch this like this. Probably be better if we did it correctly. Catch E like that. Right, and so if we return an error, right, then it's going to keep on retrying this, right? So we want to make sure that it doesn't, that it doesn't return an error. But what we can do is we can say if e.message, dot message dot, is it test unsupported image format? I think that's how we do it. So, if it contains this, I think that's all we need to do, right? Then we want a console error unsupported image format, and then else console error processing image. Okay, so we can say unsupported image format, and then actually we can go ahead and just spit back the file.path so that we can see that. Okay, so let's see if that works. Clear. And if that throws an error, then if this catches it correctly, then this should go ahead and give us it'll not try to keep processing it. And we could probably speed this up by triggering another one just for the heck of it. Let's see here. I think if I refresh the same thing, it's going to tell me that the name already exists. So let me go back here, choose file, test PDF, rename, test PDF1, open, upload file. All right, so here's our result. And now we got application eMessage.test is not a function. That makes sense because that's not what we're trying to test. Okay. We want to test that, and I think we want to make this case insensitive as well because we don't know. Okay, let's see. I'm going to do that one more time. And actually, while we're here, I'm just going to take out this exists false. So I'm going to say exists true. And we'll see that won't make a difference. And then just refresh this, submit it again, upload it. Okay, so tests, unsupported image format. Perfect. Okay, so that worked correctly and gave us that. And then it returned back. Okay, so now it's going to give us the other ones, PDF1, and then we should get one back with the PDF as well, as this will keep retrying these for us. Okay, cool. All right, so one of the other things that we can do if we want to just, sort of test a trigger here is, let's say that we wanted to maintain a set of multiple files. We got time. We got a little bit of time to do this, so let's try this. So let's say we wanted to maintain a set of multiple files that were, when you upload a file, for example, we want it to create, 3 different formats of that file. So let's go here and we're going to update update this here. So when this goes ahead to create the optimized image, so the first thing it's going to do is create this 50 by 50 cover, and it's going to write that back. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to name this something like underscore 500 by 500. And then let's go ahead and create another one. I think we can just use the same image, but I'm going to call this image 2. This is going to take the buffer in, and we'll call this result 2. This is going to write another one. And so let's go ahead and do, let's see, I think if we do, hold on, I'm just going to look up the Sharp documentation here for a second. Sharp resize. Level Sharp high performance. There's got to be a better sponsor this project. Here we go. Pixel Plumbing. There we go. All right. So resizing images. So if we want to resize an image, you use width height or width times height. So when both the width and height are provided, the possible methods by which the image should fit are those, if they're both provided. When using a fit of cover or contain, the default position is center, but you can do these other things. So it looks like we just need to create, all right, so we just want to do a resize and, so width, height, options. So I think if we don't include those, and we just say we want the width here to be, let's say 800, then we're going to just call this 800. And then we want to create a thumbnail. So we'll go ahead and create, so we're going to say square image processed, and we're going to say 800 wide image processed. And then here we're going to make a thumbnail. So we're going to resize this to 50 by 50 with fit cover. Again, I'll just use that again. So we'll make a little tiny one. WebP, and again, I know we could do a couple different things. We could reuse that other one and just resize it again, I think. Maybe, I don't know. I'm not going to worry about that. You can optimize this as a exercise for the reader, and we want to call this thumbnail. How about that? Okay, so this is going to need to be image 3, otherwise that's not going to work, and that's going to need to be image 2. Okay, so all we're doing is just adding some capabilities to the way that we're writing these files out. So if we go into our storage bucket here and go back to the root, so we're going to optimize. So we've got this one here. I'm going to delete this file so that this is gone, and upload. So we've got a couple of these different ones here. I'm just going to delete these files because we don't need them anyways. Okay, so we now have an optimized directory that apparently did not delete this file. So let me delete it again. Delete. Okay. This is not the best interface. I know that. So. Okay, so now we just have the public and that. All right, so what should happen now is if we upload that golden retriever photo. So we'll go back here. Nope. Go back here. Go back to uploaded. I'm going to choose, refresh this. Choose file, and we're going to grab this golden retriever one again. I am going to rename it back to our original name just so that we have it, and we'll click open. All right, so now we're going to upload this file, and this should upload just fine, and then this should run a bunch of these things for us that are going to say square image process, 800 image process, and well, I guess we didn't say thumbnail process, but what we should have gotten from this, which is pretty cool, is if we refresh this, we should see that we have this optimized, and now we have these different files here. We could put these in, rather than optimize, put them into public or whatever. We could do that as well. So here's our 500. This should be our 800 pixel wide one, and this one should be our thumbnail. Okay, cool. So now we've got these 3 different images taken care of for us. All right, so now the question is, what happens if we say delete this and we want to get rid of all of those different files? So we could run a process that tries to delete all of those images. And that would work. We could run that process. Or the other thing that we could do is we could just build a workflow for it that hopefully should be pretty simple. So I'm going to go ahead and do a new, I'm going to use this same stuff here because it's going to make life a little bit easier. So I'm going to go ahead and do delete instead of, so we're going to have to use, we're going to bring in Postman here to get us to do this delete thing here. And we could do it as a get if we wanted to, but essentially what I want to do is I want to grab the name of the file, and we don't need to worry about this. and we don't need to worry about any sort of formatting or anything like that. The file name is the file name, so we're going to use the whole entire file name, and then what we're going to do is, rather than worry about, let's see, so just file, right? So we're going to go ahead and use file like this, and we are going to do remove file, and we shouldn't need any of this other information, and we shouldn't need this anymore. So all we want to do is go ahead and remove the file, and then we're going to return back here. We're not going to redirect to the file. We're going to just say HTML, and we'll say we don't want storage public though. We want to use our uploads here. So again, just to make sure everybody recognizes what I'm doing, I'm creating a delete route here that will go ahead and pull in whatever the file name is, the file parameter, and then this will you call this remove. If we go over to storage here, we have make it a little bit bigger. You can see it. So removing files, we just call storage dot, or dot remove, and that will remove that file for us. So we're going to remove this particular file now from the from that, and then we're going to just return back and say file has been. I'm going to do this. I'm going to return it as JSON just so that it's so we can do a little bit of detail, and we'll just say message file has been deleted. All kinds of junk here, and then we're just going to say result like that, and that should work. Why is that not working? Return JSON message file has been deleted, comma result. Matches this call. Result. I do not know why that is doing that, because that should work. All right, hold on a second. Let me just try this and bring open Postman here, and bring Postman over here for us. JSON should just be able to spit back, unless it's saying JSON array primitive. Is there something I'm doing wrong here? Shouldn't be. Okay, I'm going to try this and see what happens. All right, so we need the URL. Again, just do that by grabbing URL. And we are going to do, let's see, a delete to this / image, and then we need that file name. So file name was, if I come back here, it is here, root uploads. No, that's not what I wanted to do. I wanted to copy the name of the file, copy, cancel, and then go back to Postman, and then go to here, and then hit send, and has been deleted. All right, so, but result is empty. Await, remove file, result. This might not return anything. That might be the problem. Maybe that's just the problem. Okay. Well, anyways, so this is, so I guess we don't get any, don't get a response back from this. I guess if there's a failure, we would just have to capture it. So anyways, so we get a message back saying that this was deleted. So that's great, because it did the first part of what we wanted it to do, in that if we go over to our storage bucket here, and we were to refresh this, we should see that there is nothing in that directory now. So in our optimize, we still have that, but our our other file was deleted. But what we want to have happen is when that one file is deleted, we want to have that trigger all the deletions for all those optimized files. So let's go ahead and build another thing down here, and we're going to do uploads on remove, and we'll say file removed, like that. Okay, let's just do that so that we can go ahead and make sure that that is working as well. And again, I think if you just do something like this, it should fill it in. Oh, so we do have copy. I don't know if that's working though. I'll have to check that because I know that we built it in, but it's not documented. So I'll have to check that. Anyways, so we care about the remove piece of this. So let's do this. Let's go back over to here. We're going to just refresh. We want to upload this file again so that it's there. And then again, we'll get a bunch of triggers here that will tell us that it created all those images for us again. That's fine. We're just testing. And then we'll come over to Postman. And we'll go ahead and send this delete request again. Says it was deleted, and now we get this file removed. So now that we get this, right, now we can go ahead and make sure that we remove those other files. So what we do is we get the file name. We'll see from over here that we basically created these files like this. So I'm gonna copy these files. Names, and actually I don't need to copy all of them because I think we can remember them. So the other one was 800, and then the last one was thumbnail, like this. Thumbnail. Okay, and then what we want to essentially do is when this file is removed from the uploads, we want to go ahead and remove this file from the optimized. So we're going to do await like this, and we'll say await.optimize remove, and we're going to remove this file, and then we're going to remove this file and this file like this. Okay, so this will go ahead and take in the file.path, which is the information that we have. Again, remove the JPG from it, calculate the name of those files again for us, and then go ahead and remove all of these. And then we'll just get a log message that says optimized images removed. Seems pretty straightforward. We could wrap this in a promise if we wanted to do this, if we wanted to have these all happen at the same time. Either way, what we're going to do is we're going to clear this out here. And we will now go back to this. Go into our storage here. I'm going to select these. I'm going to delete these now just so that they're not, we don't want these. We don't want to get anything confused. We'll go, okay, so there's nothing now in our directories. So we'll come over here. If you remember this, we're just uploading this file again. So we'll go ahead and upload the file. It'll say that it's been uploaded, and then it will go ahead and run these optimizations for us. So now we've uploaded the file, we've run the optimizations. We come over here to our storage bucket, refresh this, and we should see that we've got an uploads directory with that file in it, as well as the optimized directory with these files in it. Okay, now what we want to do is, I'm going to clear this out, and I'll make this bigger so that we can watch this. And then I'm going to come over to Postman, and I'm going to go ahead and delete the single file here, which it's now done. This is going to trigger a series of removing those other images that we had already created. So those should be gone now. And if we go back over to here and we go to storage, we should see, refresh, should see that all those files are gone now. So again, pretty straightforward workflow in order to do something like that. Why you would use something like that, it all depends, right? Maybe you've got a whole bunch of different files that you create. And of course, you can always, create or delete everything that's within a particular directory, for example. You could list all the files that are in that. I mean, there's a bunch of different ways that you could do this. Just wanted to give you sort of the basic idea. And again, there are ways that you can use those glob patterns. So if you are listening for certain things, you can make sure that you're only deleting .txt files, or you're only listening if a particular type of file is deleted. But you have a lot of control with it. And the thing that we probably didn't show here, but there are logs, right? So all the logs for everything that you do, those are all going to be here. So again, the storage remove that we just did, for example, when these trigger, any logs that you print out within those will show up. Let's see if I bring back the last. So we had an error here when we uploaded. So this is telling us that it already existed. You get some storage change events here. Again, we had a bunch of errors that we did on purpose. So all of that information is here. So these storage removed, these were the ones that get triggered when those other images are removed, but there's no handler that captures it, so it doesn't actually give us any feedback on that. So anyways, all of that stuff you can see, you got all the visibility into it. Again, hopefully this was useful. The idea behind Ampt is just to make it super easy to build, to build these types of applications. That these are very common patterns that we use over and over again. And so the question is, do we really want to spend all that time and energy figuring out, IAM permissions and all that kind of stuff? Or do we just want to get work done? And I mean, the Ampt is for people who want to get work done and they want to get work done quickly. So anyways, all right, we are at time. I really appreciate anybody who, stuck around to watch some of this and learn some cool things that you can do. Please feel free to reach out to us. We're on X and LinkedIn. You can always use the online chat as well, or feel free to email us. But sign up, check it out, and let us know what you think. And we'll see you in the next live stream.